What is good, everyone? We are back with another new video, and it's been about 100 days since the last upload, which is a pretty insane amount of time to not release anything. But now we're back, and what I want to discuss today is Luffy versus Kizaru. I want to try to do a complete fight breakdown, and I've been meaning to talk about this for a while because I've had a lot of thoughts about this fight and different opinions that I've seen about it that I just haven't had the chance to get out. First and foremost, the thing that I see the most about this is the fact that it's characterized as a one-shot or a decisive victory, or Oda's way of making the statement that emperors are so far above admirals that it's not even worth talking about, that it shouldn't even have time to be discussed. And of course, I vehemently disagree with that notion for a multitude of reasons, the main one being the fact that there was way too much nuance in this fight for things to lean in that direction. Taking it from the top, the purpose of this fight was not to determine a winner. Luffy had his own goal, and Kizaru had his own separate goal, neither of which were the sole purpose of defeating the other. Kizaru acknowledged at one point that he's wasting his time here, and he won't have enough time to complete his mission, which is to take out Vegapunk. Luffy said, "That's right, I'm doing my job." Now, as far as overall ability, Luffy has been shown to be able to fight at the top tier level, and we know this because, of course, he defeated Kaido, but on top of that, Kizaru also gave him his credit. He said, "I see now why you were able to defeat Kaido. I see the power you hold." At the same time, we have to give Kizaru his credit as well, because his portrayal as an admiral is on par with that of an emperor. Now, I'm not saying he defeats any particular emperor. I'm not saying that he's stronger, but he is on that level. He is on that portrayal level. Now, there was a point in time where I made a video regarding how people in the One Piece world would answer the question, who is stronger between Mihawk and Shanks? Because of course, everybody has their particular biases, and they would answer the question a different way based on who they fought, who they've seen, what they know about them, stuff like that. So for example, if we were to ask Kaido who is stronger between Mihawk and Shanks, he would say Shanks because he has experience fighting him, and he would probably call Mihawk a mere warlord. We've seen in the story that Kaido doesn't have any respect for the warlord title, but he has insane respect for Shanks and his ability based on their encounter. And of course, as an emperor himself, he has insane respect for the emperor title as a whole as well. But of course, this is not the opinion of everyone in the One Piece world. This is based on Kaido's experiences and his biases. From what I recall though, this sort of bias and anti-admiral thing has never been a thing in the One Piece world. It's only a thing in the community, to be quite honest. Now, if we base things off of the character encounters in the series, I would say they think that the admirals can match the emperors. Now, if we look at the way that Don Chinjiao and Luffy himself talked about emperors and admirals in Dressrosa, they were presented in a way that you would think they're equal obstacles, at least in terms of power, in order to get to the One Piece. Luffy said, "I don't care if you're an emperor or an admiral. If I don't defeat all of you, I can never become the Pirate King." And Don Chinjiao said, "You think you can trounce the admirals and the emperors of the sea?" No, he didn't say the emperors and the commander level admirals, or the emperors and the much weaker admirals. No, he said the emperors and the admirals. Now, I don't want to get too far away from the main focus, but I do think those vantage points are important, especially when you put it in the context of this fight. When Kizaru was approaching, the Straw Hats were scared. They said, "Run away, it's Kizaru. What are you doing, Luffy? Why are you fighting him?" You would think if the portrayal wasn't equal, you would have the Straw Hats saying, "Oh, it's only Kizaru. Luffy can one-shot him. He can defeat him in 10 minutes. We'll be fine." But no, they told Luffy to run away because these circumstances really aren't ideal against someone as powerful as Kizaru. Now, of course, I understand some people view this just as Sabo Ori trauma and not them actually respecting Kizaru's power. But even if you want to look at it from that angle, you also have to look at it from the lens of Saturn and what he thinks and how he regards Kizaru's abilities. Because when he showed up, he said he was disappointed. He said this was shamefully slow, especially for someone of Kizaru's standard. And this is knowing full well that Luffy was on that island and was prepared to protect Vegapunk. And yet still, he was confident in Kizaru's ability to go there, take on Luffy as an obstacle, and complete the task at hand. Something else very important is the fact that he also acknowledged that he knows why Kizaru has been so slow. He knows why he was not able to complete this task. And this wasn't to say that he thinks Luffy was far too powerful for Kizaru. This is him acknowledging that he knows the circumstances that made it difficult. And that's because of the deep emotional attachment that he has to Bonnie and Vegapunk. Throughout the fight, he keeps talking about how this is incredibly difficult for him to have to take out one of his friends. And even in the middle of attacking Luffy, he destroyed the Vega Force, which was one of Vegapunk's most prized creations. He was having a small flashback to this moment and was expressing great disappointment that these are not the circumstances. This is not what he has to do. So throughout the entire fight, there was so much doubt and regret filling him up. Now, let's go back to what Ridley said at an earlier point in the story. He said, "To never doubt, that is power. Comparatively, to doubt, that is the lack of power. To be soft, that is weakness. That holds somebody back. One of the greatest and earliest examples of this is Water 7 and Enies Lobby, when the Straw Hats were not able to fight at their best because they had no idea what was going on with Robin. And as a consequence, they got whooped badly. And even Nami acknowledged it outright. She said hesitating makes us weak, but now that they know that they have to save Robin, their power will be infinite. And this is to say that they will not hold back at all. They would then be able to fight at max capacity heading into Enies Lobby. And then we have the case of Kiku not being able to finish off Kanjuro. Her head was not in the game, so her strikes were not as sharp. And as a result, he was able to survive and do what he did later on in the arc. And of course, one consequence of that was the death of Ashura Doji. This is all just to say that a clouded mind will inhibit any fighter in the One Piece world. I know many people are tired of hearing these so-called excuses for admirals and why they're not going all out, why they're not able to fight at their best abilities. And for this fight specifically, this nuance absolutely exists. This is not just a fight where you can say Luffy obliterated Kizaru and asserted his dominance. This is a fight we have to look at detail by detail, see every factor that goes in, and then make the determination on what exactly happened, what were the advantages, disadvantages, and overall circumstances. One thing that I've relied on for much of the story to try to figure this out is the whole thing that Kaido said about Haki transcending all. I kind of took this to mean that Kaido meant that having Haki or having superior Haki grants you outright superiority or victory over another. But that's a very lazy way to think about it, because we know a lot more goes into this fight that allows us to compare these fighters. We know there's a lot more to think about. I think Kaido's statement was meant to say Haki has the highest potential. It allows you to reach the peak of peaks, because you can still have weaknesses that need to be filled up to make you formidable enough to defeat anyone. So I think in Luffy's case, when comparing him to Kizaru, I believe that Luffy may very well have the stronger attack power between these two fighters. I think if you're just thinking about something like Bajrang Gun, I don't think that Kizaru has anything as powerful as that. I won't say it's impossible, but I will say it's unlikely just based off what we know and the way things seem to be trending. And that's okay to acknowledge, because to be stronger than someone, that does not mean you have to punch harder than them. Your culmination of abilities has to be able to outdo their culmination of abilities. So of course for Kizaru, I think his greatest advantage is his speed, and he can manipulate that to give him a greater advantage against certain fighters. And you know, it's very possible that Luffy had to fight at such a high speed in order to keep up with Kizaru that Gear 5 ran out even quicker than it would normally. Of course, Gear 5 is supposed to have a time limit inherently, but Luffy still looked a lot more worn out than you would expect. So in a regular fight, you can imagine that Kizaru can exploit this. He already told us that he knows about Luffy's limit and he expected it to run out much sooner, but Luffy was able to get out one last strike before he gassed out and fell to the bottom. And I think this just happened to take Kizaru by surprise, because he didn't expect Luffy to have this much energy left. But then consider the fact that this is how Luffy ended up, and Kizaru didn't even go out of his way to attack him and give him his best attacks. We haven't even seen Awakening. The only thing that we've seen that's new from Kizaru is his cloning ability, and Luffy was able to deal with those in one kick. Now, there's also the side of Kizaru being characterized as a character of having very low endurance, and oftentimes this is because he wasn't taking the attacks that Kaido was able to withstand, which of course I don't think is a fair comparison to make, because Kaido is an anomaly. He is arguably the most durable character we've ever seen in One Piece, to the point that he was deemed invincible by the way the characters characterized him. So on one hand, I don't think that Kizaru is meant to match Kaido's durability. That would just be silly, because that's not his thing. That's his advantage. So this isn't an Admiral versus Emperor thing when we're comparing the contrast in durability. This is a Kizaru versus Kaido. They both have things that make them insanely strong, and some of those things are native only to them. Because if you ask me about speed, I don't think that Kaido is as fast as Kizaru, but I think he has things that he can exploit in order to defeat Kizaru. Still on the topic of Kizaru's ability to withstand attacks, I think if we consider his hesitation as well as where he got hit, it still makes sense that he was temporarily immobilized. Strikes to someone's tempo are meant to incapacitate them outright and of course immobilize them, so this could be the point of White Star Gun. And it's possible that this can happen to Kaido as well, even though I believe Kaido has better durability than Kizaru, significantly better as a matter of fact, just because Kizaru is human. Now I say this to assert the fact that I don't think that attack and the result is an indication of overall power or something that we should put in a vacuum in order to scale the two. Now, I say this, but I'm still open to the possibility that Kizaru might still in fact have the worst endurance among top tiers, because I still think that can make sense. I think him having an overwhelming speed advantage can mean that he hasn't taken as much hits as others in his life and he hasn't had the chance to build up his endurance. Something similar to what we saw with Katakuri. The more you resist damage through either speed or something like Future Sight, the more you're unable to take it when it comes to you. But we also have to think about the fact that Kizaru is an admiral. He's not a Yonko commander. There is a lot more expected from admirals. They're supposed to be able to prepare for all sorts of scenarios when it comes to combat. For example, Green Bull acknowledged that as an admiral, he has to be prepared to counter something like fire against his vines. Because he's an admiral of the Navy, he is not supposed to have this silly weakness. It's this sort of attention to detail that enables admirals, to be as strong as they are. So even though I think it's possible for Kizaru's endurance to be low, I think it also makes sense for Kizaru to be prepared to be able to take strong attacks despite having a very good ability to avoid them through years of training and becoming stronger and preparing for all these situations as an admiral. In Luffy's case, I think he has a few things that he has to work on before I can say he is definitively stronger and can win every single fight against Kizaru and has enough advantages to give him the overwhelming edge. The most glaring thing right now is the Gear 5 time limit, and the thing is, I know a lot of people were not ready to accept that this was still a thing with Luffy's gears, but it makes sense. Why would he have access to lower gears with time limits, but then when he goes a step further, that time limit is no longer there? Access to greater power should also mean more consequence or greater overall strain on the body. I can say on one hand, I'm sure Luffy will have access to greater haki, better future sight, and things of that nature. I'm not sure what comes with Gear 5 and what he will be able to accomplish with that, or all the things that he's meant to improve there. And I'm not even sure he's going to get rid of the time limits. I'm not sure if he's meant to fight in a different way that enables him to win his fights. The only thing I can say for sure is Luffy does have weaknesses and disadvantages that he needs to work on or cover up in some way. As for Kizaru, I don't think we've seen the best of him. I think we'll see his awakening at some point later on in the story. But at this point in time, it's looking less and less likely that he'll finish his job on Egghead, because who gave Luffy that food? But those are all my thoughts on this fight. Tell me what you think though. Comment all your thoughts down below, but also don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more videos just like this one.